Welcome to Hilltop, a tiny city in Anoka County, Minnesota. Its size is just 0.12 square miles in area. The city is an enclave or completely surrounded by the city of Columbia Heights. At first glance, this just looks like another small city, but don't be mistaken. Looking deeper, it holds an interesting history. Hilltop's beginnings were as an unincorporated region in Fridley Township. The city used to have a dairy farm that later became the Oak Grove Riding Academy and stables, neither of which are around today. Then, in the 1940s, we start to see the first of Hilltop's charm. The first mobile home park opened up. Its name was Trailer City, still in operation today. Then, in 1955, right next door, another trailer park named the Sunnyside Mobile Home Park opened as well. In 1956, the residents of both trailer parks were worried that the Fridley Township was going to remove their homes. So in 1956, Les Johnson, the owner of Trailer City, went to Columbia Heights City Council and asked to be annexed by the city. Columbia Heights, however, turned it down because of city ordinance against trailers. Because Columbia Heights wasn't able to accept, Les Johnson instead created a petition for incorporation. The petition won 137 to 34, and on the 1st of May 1956, Hilltop was born. It got its name from a nearby drive-in theater, the Hilltop Drive-In Theater, which no longer exists. At the point that Hilltop became its own city, Columbia Heights had already annexed all the land surrounding Hilltop. They sent a notice to Hilltop explaining that they only had until July 1st, or 2 months, before the water and sewer contract ends. However, the town made its own water tower in the mid-1960s, which had it tap into the Minneapolis water supply, ending the water conflicts in Columbia Heights. Yet another conflict with Columbia Heights occurred in 1958 when Hilltop wanted a liquor license so they could open their own bars. The October 28, 1958 Minneapolis Star stated, "Hilltop is talking of setting up 2 municipal liquor stores, an off-sale bottle store, the other a dinner club. This could cut heavily into the profits of established municipal liquor stores in both Columbia Heights and Fridley." Obviously, Columbia Heights did not want their profits cut in two, so Columbia Heights passed an ordinance that banned the delivery of liquor from Hilltop to Columbia Heights, threatening Hilltop liquor stores. In the end, however, Hilltop ended up with their liquor license. Then, in 1961, the town had grown a lot in population, attracting a strip mall in the area, including many buildings, but most prominently a liquor store. Columbia Heights, after hearing about the construction of the liquor store, tried to prove that Hilltop's liquor license were illegal. However, they proved unsuccessful in doing so. In August of 1964, Hilltop's 7-year-old fire protection contract with Fridley Township expired, and they were looking for more fire protection. The newspaper from August 6, 1964 stated, "Although Columbia Heights surrounds Hilltop, official relations between the two municipalities have been strained since Hilltop was incorporated in 1956. It is unlikely that Hilltop fire protection could come from Columbia Heights." The city ended up without fire protection for a month until they paid Fridley for it. In 1965, Columbia Heights elected a new mayor, Bruce Nawrocki, and he wasn't done with the idea of annexation. The Minneapolis Star newspaper wrote, "The idea of merging Columbia Heights with Hilltop is not dead." It seems like in 1967 the tensions were somewhat eased between the two, because in the 16th of June 1967 Minneapolis Star read, "Okay, we are glad they are happy, but it does seem that people there could get more efficient service by linking up with a larger community. I don't want to wish them any bad luck, but I assume they will have to find out for themselves how it will go if they ever get a bad emergency situation." Finally, in 1968, the tensions completely died down when Hilltop Mayor Vivian Caesar and Columbia Heights Mayor Bruce Nawrocki met to discuss the issues between the cities. Today, Columbia Heights and Hilltop no longer have any conflict between each other. In fact, Hilltop now has its medical, fire, and police departments managed by Columbia Heights, and even 2 schools in the school district there. Hilltop's first mayor was named William Weicker. He prohibited many people from entering the city, including fortune tellers and other such imposters, a person known to be a pickpocket, thief, burglar, yeggman, or confidence man, and having no visible or lawful means of support. Anyone procuring or attempting to solicit money or any other thing of value by falsely pretending and representing himself to be blind, deaf, dumb, without arms or legs, or to be otherwise physically deficient, which is fair, and a person wandering about and lodging in taverns, groceries, alehouses, marketplaces, sheds, stables, barns, or any other uninhabited buildings or in the open air and not giving a good account of himself. Then, in 1970, the mayor at the time, George Reeder, attempted to replace the female village clerk because he believed men were temperamentally better suited for the position, a view apparently held by many of his supporters. And then, in 1991, Karen Dans, the city clerk, embezzled $212,000 from the city over a 7-year period. And according to a criminal complaint, records indicate that Dans spent much of the money on personal items, including clothes, jewelry, and collectibles. Hilltop has a surprising history of crime, so much so that in 1995 the Star Tribune stated, "Tiny Hilltop is crime capital." But now let's skip to 1976, when in the city a triple homicide occurred. Sarrazin first received a phone call from a person who apparently wanted to buy some drugs, and 5:30 a.m. the next morning, when an apparently hysterical Olson pounded on his landlord's door to inform him of the shootings. Olson, who had lived with Sarrazin at the Hilltop address since January 1st, said he overheard several telephone calls between Sarrazin and Ferguson March 17th. Which led him to believe that a drug transaction was to occur that night. Sarrazin and Olson were the only people present in the townhouse until about 2:30 a.m. when Miss Egan, Sarrazin's girlfriend, arrived. She was a little loaded, Olson said, because she had been out celebrating St. Patrick's Day, and soon afterwards she went upstairs to bed. When the two men heard a knock on their door at about 5:20, Olson said Sarrazin asked him to go up to his room because they only want one person present when the drug transaction occurred. Olson said he followed his roommate's instructions. He lay on his bed for a short time until one assailant, wearing a red bandana over his face, entered the room, cut the telephone cord, then left. Olson said he couldn't hear all that ensued between the assailants and the victims, but that he was aware of a commotion. Then, a short time later, two assailants came to his room and pointed guns at him, and one said, "This is a rip-off. Roll over on your stomach or we'll blow your head off." A scuffle ensued between one of the assailants, Hall, and Olson, during which time shots were fired, Olson said. During the fight, Olson said, he whacked Hall over the head with a gun. After the assailants fled, Olson said he discovered Miss Egan alive. The perpetrators ended up receiving a life sentence in prison. Next, in 1980, when 3 prison escapees from an Iowa prison fled to Hilltop to hide, they hid in a family friend's trailer. 3 Iowa convicts were arrested Thursday afternoon while hiding in a Hilltop mobile home belonging to a family friend. They had escaped from the Alamaki County Jail in Waukon, Iowa, 14 hours earlier by bending bars and climbing out a 4-story window on a rope made of bed sheets. Authorities also have arrested a man suspected of being their getaway driver. The 4 men, plus Charles Sproles, owner of the mobile home, surrendered at about 2 p.m. yesterday after the trailer was surrounded by officers from Minneapolis, Fridley, Columbia Heights, and Anoka County Sheriff's Department. He said officials were evacuating the area and preparing to shoot tear gas into the mobile home when the men surrendered. Next, in 1987, there was a murder-suicide that occurred in Hilltop. Brother, sister found dead in suspected slaying, suicide. 2 teenagers, a brother and a sister, were found shot to death in their home in Hilltop Monday afternoon, apparently victims of a murder and suicide. The Anoka County Sheriff's Department said Kimberly Murphy, 18, and Sean Murphy, 16, were found by their aunt Michelle Banker and father Gerald Murphy in their trailer home. Authorities said they believe Sean shot his sister and then himself. Banker said the 2 appeared happy and gave no indication of trouble. "There was nothing to say that something like this would happen," said Banker. "Everything was fine here." Banker said Kimberly had celebrated her 18th birthday Saturday. Police are investigating the incident. With all these crimes, the article that said Tiny Hilltop is crime capital was published. The capital of serious crime in Minnesota is not Minneapolis or St. Paul or even Bemidji, which held the title in the mid-1980s. It's Hilltop, a Twin Cities suburb of just 72 acres and 774 people, where one serious crime was committed for each 6 residents last year. Though that fact is pretty crazy, the numbers could have been inflated due to the city's small population. Like when Vatican City in 1998 had 256 homicides per 100,000 people, but it was just because the number was inflated due to population. That is why Hilltop has been known as the crime capital. Now, let's move on to... When you think of a city's identity, you probably don't think, man, my city just has too much community pride. But that is actually the case with Hilltop. The 6th of October 1978 Star Tribune said, most of the microburbs suffer from a lack of identity. People drive through not knowing they are in Sunfish Lake or Spring Lake Park and caring even less. Hilltop residents think they are a bit more visible than that. If we have an identity problem, we're too ignorant to admit it, Barack said. The water tower takes care of that. The bright blue Hilltop water tower with the big red lettering is certainly one of the more prominent structures in all of Anoka County. I call it God's 80 acres. There was another newspaper article on the 25th of March 1982 that also shined some light on the city's proud community. Everyone thinks it's just a trailer park, but it really isn't, Johnson said. It's like a typical neighborhood. I like it. It's fun having our own community and our own government. We like our identity. Like Johnson, a lot of Hilltop residents wouldn't live any other way or anywhere else. Like they may miss having basements and garages, but they chose the close-knit friendliness, convenience, and independence of their subcompact-sized community. One of the town's most proud pieces is the water tower, which used to have bright red letters, but today just has black letters. The thing they are most proud of about the water tower is the water pressure, which they have made very clear in this newspaper article. Our water pressure, Mayor Bruce Hay disclosed, is stronger than that of Columbia Heights, and we are very proud of that tank. We don't have as many jets as the Israelis, but we sure have that water pressure. It is by no means a bad thing to have a super strong identity and a pride for your city. In fact, it is what makes the city stand out, and Hilltop here, well, it definitely stands out. Hilltop is a city comprised almost entirely of mobile or trailer homes. There are actually 4 separate trailer parks in the city: Trailer City, Sunnyside, Hilltop Mobile Home Community, and Hilltop Properties. But why were the mobile homes so popular? Well, let's go back to the beginning. During the early 1900s, when cars were sweeping the market, people would often go camping with their cars, commonly called auto camping. People would often make their own camping trailers so they wouldn't have to pinch a tent everywhere they went. The trailers became very popular, but all the cars would park on the streets at night, making the roads very crowded. So different counties started to build their own trailer site. The trailer park was born. The trailers very quickly became not just for camping. People were permanently staying there. Then came the Great Depression. When unemployment soared, the trailer home became a cheap alternative to a regular home, and the amount of trailer homes soared. Yet again, there was another huge soar in trailer homes at the start of World War II, as people were moving across the country looking for job opportunities. Even after the war, there was the baby boom, and the number of mobile homes was still growing, though there was also a stigma against them. Even the NHA stated, while trailers are being used successfully as stopgap war housing, they do not meet the standards of the National Housing Agency for duration housing of war workers. By 1954, only 2 years after the creation of Hilltop, there were said to be about 700,000 trailer homes in the USA. Sometime around 1954, trailer homes started to be called mobile homes. And even though the number of homes was still growing, the stigma also grew with it. An article from the Survey magazine stated, a new kind of slum, the permanent trailer camp, offering all the bad features of the urban blight area. None of the vacation adventures for which trailers were made. Trailer camp slums are a very real, if as yet unrecognized, menace to our American way of life. They should be eradicated now, even in the face of an acute housing shortage. For the creation of even more slums is not the solution to the problem of the housing shortage. In the 1970s, yet again, the number of sales exploded because of relaxing highway regulations, and by 1974, nearly 9 million people were living in mobile homes, which was nearly 4% of the people in the U.S. Today, mobile home communities are at somewhat of a standstill, and many of the reasons to buy one have been lost. That doesn't stop Hilltop, where almost 70% of the living spaces are mobile homes. However, Hilltop isn't the only mobile home community in Minnesota. There's also Landfall, Minnesota as well, which is actually smaller than Hilltop, and nearly all of the homes here are mobile homes. So that is Hilltop, Minnesota. And this just proves that even if a city is small, it may hold an interesting history if you look deep enough.